forward. All right, so first of all, I'll go ahead and share with you all this. Looks like some of you already are on there, but just so that it's easier, in this chat system, so for those of you who would prefer it here, this is the Google Doc. I normally would have just shared the full thing with you, but it's like 75 pages long now, so it's probably just a bit cumbersome. Might be easier for you if you just follow along here. Yeah, so that's the document that we're going to be using. So just feel free to follow along with that. I might actually, I'll keep my camera on right now. I might actually turn it off later if this thing tends to distract me a bit. I just don't want that to happen. So just keep that in mind. All right, so today, inshallah, we're going to do huruf al-jar and dhuruf, and if we get time, the fi'l amr. We will translate those terms when the time comes. By the way, give me some feedback. Have you guys done lesson 9 yet?
Yes, we have.
Yes, we did learn.
Cool, excellent. Okay, excellent, good to know. That is good to know. All right, so let me share my screen. Before I do that. There we go. Okay, cool. Right. Participants can now see my application. I assume that means you can see this thing, so that's good. All right. So today, and again, if there are any questions about any material from the first day of class until now, just let me know. In the meantime, so today we're going to be focusing on 3 things. I don't know if we'll get time for this last thing. It just kind of depends. I don't want to speed through material today. That defeats the purpose of the office hour session. This is a good time for you guys to just let the material marinate and just digest it more. So we're going to focus on these 2 things primarily, and then the first 2 things. And if we get time, we'll focus on the fi'l amr, which is basically the command form. I'll put this here for now for your purposes, but it just kind of depends if we get to it. I say prepositions in quotation marks because it's not really the best translation. You guys have probably heard this from your teachers as well. What we consider prepositions in English isn't always, it's not always that in Arabic. Like there's 2 different distinctions which we'll go into today, and I'm sure your teachers went into it. There's 2 different distinctions as to what a preposition could be in Arabic, where in English, it's all just prepositions. So keep that in mind. I always tell students, and I'm sure you've heard me say this countless times, focus on the Arabic, try not to translate everything into English. I know in the beginning it's not easy to do that, I get that, but it'll serve you much better if you focus on the Arabic more, because as you know, whether you continue on with Fawakih or other places, everyone, including Fawakih, eventually they're going to focus more on the Arabic terms because they're more standardized, you know? The English is always a translation, and the translations can be different depending on who is translating. So just something to keep in mind. Let me put in the harakat here. Huruf, jar, huruf, oops, not that. Okay. Yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to be doing this based off of 2 seconds. I'm gonna have to stop my share real quick. Not the one I want. This is the one that I want. Okay, cool. So back to this. Let's share the screen. First this. All right, so for those of you also wishing to follow along in terms of the YouTube video, I'm just in the link that I sent out in the office hour session WhatsApp group. It's the lesson 9 link. If you just go on to there, and it should be, we're doing the first YouTube video link, which is prepositions. Okay, so let's get started. Inshallah, bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Huruf al-jar. So again, prepositions, even this video explains, it's not the best translation, because English grammar and Arabic grammar, they coincide sometimes. A lot of the times they do not coincide. So keep that in mind. So before we get any further, I would like to translate to you guys what huruf al-jar is. Now, hopefully at this point, I know that, Fawakih goes at a pretty decently fast pace, but hopefully that term should seem familiar to you guys. Huruf. So, okay, let's see here. It's huruf al-jar. Okay, so this term, as you know, if we translate it directly, huruf is the plural, and by now you guys should know what the word plural is, right? It's jama. We'll just say it like that. Jam. Oops, that's I mistaken there. That's jama like that. Is the plural of harf. Eventually, there we go. Okay. So notice I'm not saying preposition here. I'm just focusing on what it is, how it's defined in Arabic, right? How the Arab grammarians look at it. So huruf is the plural of harf. I know in English we tend to say like harfs or isms or fi'ls. That's like taking the word in Arabic, like harf, and applying English grammar, because putting an s at the end, the suffix s, is how we pluralize things in English, right? Or es, depending. But that's not the way things are pluralized in Arabic, right? So keep that in mind. As you continue to become more advanced students of sacred knowledge, no one's going to say harfs in the future. No one will say isms in the future. No one will say fi'ls. They'll say the proper plural of it, which is going to be for harf, it's going to be huruf. For ism, it's going to be asma. And for fi'l, it's going to be af'al. So I don't know. I don't think you guys need to know that right now. Just keep that in mind, okay? But I would just start to learn the plurals as you go along. That's really the best way, in my opinion. So harf is the singular. The plural is huruf. So that's why they say huruf here, because we're talking about all of them. Or as if we're talking about a group of them, not all of them, but a group of them. And you guys know what jar at this point means, at least I hope you do. Jar is well, I guess it depends on how you order them, but generally speaking, it's the third case ending indicated by, so here, this is where it gets kind of a little more complicated. It's indicated by kasra. I do hope that a lot of this is review for now. Kasra for singular ism, right? It's indicated by kasra for a singular ism. It's indicated by ani for dual, can't type today, dual ism. And it's indicated by una. Someone else is coming in. Okay. It's indicated by una for plural ism. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and put down here, i.e. al-muthan. I'm not sure if you've been introduced to this term yet or not. I'm not sure. But this is how they say dual. Okay. That word there, and I'll go ahead and put dual. Okay. Al-muthanna means dual. Okay. And then plural, what you guys definitely should know by now, is al-jam'u, you can say. The ending doesn't matter, but the point is jam'a, that, or you don't have to add the other line, you can just say jam'a. But the point is that's the word. That's the word for plural, something being plural. So, anywho, ani, so kasra for singular ism. Okay, so for an example, if we said al-muslimi, okay, and I'm gonna give, so in order for this to happen, for example, we would have some kind of harf jar, and I know that you guys have learned some of them. So for example, min al-muslimi, okay. Now for dual, using min as well, we would say min al-musli. Oops, I just corrected myself here. I was giving everything according to the rafa state. I don't know where my mind is today. Sorry, aini is for the jar state, and then ina is for the plural state. Sorry about that, guys. The good thing about the Google Docs is I can easily correct myself here. So min al-muslimaini, that's for dual, for the jar state, okay? And then muslim, let's just say min al-muslimati, muslimina, like that. That is the plural state, okay, for a word in jar state, okay? So basically kasra for singular, aini, the aini ending, muslimaini, for example, mu'minaini, qanitaini, etc. for dual, and then the ina ending for plural. That's for the state of jar. And that's what it, so the jar is indicated by these three things, okay? Right. Okay. So again, if there's any questions, interject at any time, raise your hand, put in the chat, just feel free to just say it at any time, that's fine. If I don't hear anything, I just kind of assume that you guys are good to go. So this is huruf al-jar, hopefully, so for now, it's been pretty clear. Now, why do they call it huruf al-jar? Because these are the letters that, or sometimes more than just a letter, but the point is, these are the entities that, or okay, let's just say prepositions. These are the prepositions or entities that when they come, the word following it is always in a state of jar, okay? So the word that follows the harful jarri, I can type today. The word that follows the harful jarri is in the state of jar, okay? Now, I'm going to introduce another term to you because I'm pretty sure now is a good time to introduce it. The other term, it's not really a different term, it's just a different way of looking at it, I guess. So this word after the harful jar is called ism majroor. Okay, let me see someone put it repeat the ending again. Oh, sure, I can repeat the ending again. All right, so the kasra is for singular ism, min al muslimi. Okay, aini is for dual, anything dual. So min al muslimaini, min al muslimaini, min al mu'minaini, min al qalamaini, min al kitabaini. Okay, and remember that the noon has a kasra. The last letter doesn't always have to be a meme. In this case, it's a meme, but the last core letter or root letter will be with a fatha. For dual, I mean, sorry, for plural, it's the exact opposite. The meme has a kasra, or the last letter doesn't always have to be a meme, but in this case, the meme has a kasra, and then this noon has a fatha. So notice how for dual, it's switched around, right? For dual, this has a fatha, the last core letter, whereas in plural, it has a kasra. And then notice here with this noon, it has a kasra for dual, and for the noon for the plural, it has a fatha. It's just switched around. Okay, so keep that in mind. So for dual, it's muslimaini, aini ending. Plural is muslimina. Okay. For example, ya ayyuhal muslimin. Okay, I think at some point it comes in the Quran, I believe. Don't quote me on that part, but I believe so. Ya ayyuhal muslimin or ya ayyuhal mu'minin, some things like that, right? That's muslimin, mu'minina. I say muslimin, you can continue and say muslimina, mu'minina. That is an example of the plural ending specifically. So, right. Sorry guys, this camera thing is distracting me and I don't want to distract myself further. I'm gonna go ahead, I mean, unless you guys really insist on seeing my face, but I'm gonna go ahead and just stop the video. And okay, just making sure. Can you guys just please confirm with me? I hope I didn't press a button I'm not supposed to. Can you still all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. That's good to know. All right, I just didn't want to keep getting distracted by the picture. That's all. I want to make sure I put my full devoted attention to teaching you guys. Okay, so I hope that makes sense, Aziza. Let me know if that doesn't. Okay, so basically you have the kasra, the aini ending for dual, and the ina ending for plural. Now, the word after the harful jar is called ism majroor. So why do they call it that? The reason is this. Ism, you guys know what ism means. I don't think I have to explain that further. Majroor, you guys will learn slowly, surely but surely, what they call the tasrifat, which are the conjugations, right? Every language has conjugations. English doesn't really have many conjugations, but Arabic definitely has conjugations. French does, German does, most languages do. English not so much, but the point is, like how we say he says, she says, they say, those are conjugations. There's also another concept similar to the conjugations, which is you guys will learn that once you start to learn. So basically, like the fa'il, like when you have the verb, you can, if you put like the fa'il, when you put an alif in there, it becomes the doer. Or if you put a maf'ul, which is what this is, it becomes the recipient of the action. I'm sure that didn't make any sense to you guys. Don't worry about that right now. I'm just trying to explain to you that you will see eventually, maybe in level 2, I'm not sure exactly when, maybe even in level 1, but they will eventually go through the different, they're not really conjugations, the different form patterns, I guess, is what they would call it in English. And you'll start to see that, okay, this word falls into this pattern. Okay, so this pattern is called maf'ul. In other words, it takes the action of whatever it's happening upon it. That's a really complicated, intangible way of saying the following. Majrur just means that the word in the state of, or, it's just a case ending of jar. Now, I'm not entirely sure if you've learned this word yet, but this word is very commonly used in all grammar texts, really. It's like the basics, people don't see. The reason is because it's kind of cumbersome and kind of tedious to say, okay, you have the harf jar here, and then the word that follows is in the state of jar, right? Instead of saying all of that, they just say ism majrur. It's understood that that's the word that follows the harf jar, okay? So for example, let's give it an easy example that I think you guys can all understand. We'll say, okay, we'll go with the same example as above, okay? Min al-muslimi, okay? So, min, the first word is always going to be the harf al-jar. I've never really seen an example where the harf al-jar comes after. I guess it could technically. No, it can't actually. No, it can't. So, min is going to be the harf jar. It is going to be specifically the word that comes first. Now, it doesn't mean it's the first word in the sentence, right? As we discussed, the first word in a sentence has to be an ism if we're looking for a nominal sentence, right? And min is a harf. It cannot be an ism, right? So we're not talking about the first entity or first word in a sentence. We're just talking about if we have some kind of phrase, which is what, like, we have a set of words here. That's what we're talking about. So the min is going to be the harful jar, okay? It's usually the first one, and the thing about the huruful jar is you have to memorize them. There's not really any given set of rules in terms of how to memorize. It's just, well, you got to memorize them, and we'll get to that pretty soon too. Now, the second word is going to be, which is al-muslimi. This is what's considered ism majrur. Now, there's one main way of determining why, because if you look at it, it has a kasra on the end, on the ending letter. Okay, this word muslimi has a kasra at the end. This is how you know it's ism majrur. Okay, because the whole definition of ism majrur is it is a word that takes the ending of jar. Now remember that ending could be aini for dual or ina for plural, right? So I'm going to keep in mind, we'll go ahead and talk about that too. But I'm just saying that the key distinction here, the gist of what I'm trying to get, the takeaway point is, look at the ending. If the ending has the sign of jar, which in this case, if it's a singular word, it's kasra. Because of that kasra at the end, below the meme, this word is going to be ism majrur. Okay. This is an important term. I don't say you have to memorize a ton of terms, but this is a term that I would definitely commit to memory at some point. I'll even bold it. Ism majrur. So the first word is going to be harful jar. The second one is going to be ism majrur. So why do they call it harful jar? Because this word, this min, is the reason this word, the following word, is in the state of jar. Okay. So you know how I told you guys that the state of rafa is the default state, right? This is why this is important. So if I just had the word al-muslimu, what state is this word in? This word is in the state of case ending, I should say. I'm used to saying state, but I think the Fawakih teaches the case ending, which is fine. It doesn't really matter. It's in the case ending of rafa. Why? Because of the dhamma at the end. But also notice there's another reason. Have you noticed that there's nothing coming? Well, just to make it clear, I'm going to do the following. Like that. Have you noticed that there's nothing coming before the word al-Muslim? There's nothing at all, right? It's just by itself. This is in the case ending of rafa by default. This is what it means to be by default. In other words, there's no reason for us to suspect that it would be anything else. And what does that mean? That means that there's nothing coming before it. If there's something that comes before it that would change it, then we get into the situation like this. Min, or sorry, Muslim comes after the word min. Min comes from first, right? Min comes before. That min, when it comes in, it tells us that, okay, we are no longer in the state of default. We're no longer in the default state, which is rafa. Therefore, because we're not in the default state, we are in another state. And that is determined, as you guys will learn, based on whatever letter or whatever haruf or whatever preposition comes there, okay? In the situation is min. Min is known to be harful jar, without a doubt, by unanimous agreement among the grammarians. Therefore, the word after it has to be in the state of jar. I hope that makes sense. Stop me if it's confusing, but this is why, you know, I think I mentioned it several times during the first few office hour sessions, and I'm sure your teachers have too. The ending, the case state or the case ending of rafa is by default. And this is what we mean by that. What we mean by default is there's nothing coming before that word, that particular word of interest that would tell us otherwise. If there was a min or an ila or a wow or a fi or a lam or a lan or the countless other things that could come before it, that would be different. Then it's not in the state of rafa. It will be in a different state. But here, this word, so for example, this word, there's a min before it. That means it's not in the state of rafa because it's not default anymore. We're defining default as nothing precedes that word. Nothing comes before the word. So because nothing comes before the word, or in this situation, because something does come before the word, it is not in the state of rafa. It is in the other two possible states, which is the nasab state or the jar state. And then how do you know which state it is in? Because we've just established that it's not in default state. It can't be rafa. Okay, so then it's either nasab or jar. How do you know which one? You have to look at the particular letter or preposition or harf. In this situation, we're using min. Min has to be among the huruf al-jar, or the harf specifically associated with jar. Looks like we have someone to raise their hand. Khatira, you raise your hand. Please go ahead.
Yeah, just I want to ask if it is in Rafa case, it always comes at the beginning of the sentence. It means like it's
Not always. Good question, actually. Usually, but not always. So for your purposes, yes, you'll see it at the beginning. So what you'll probably end up seeing is, example, you know, al-muslimu kabirun. Okay. Yeah, you'll probably see it at the beginning, but okay, you know what? I'm trying to think of an example. Fihi lisanun. Can I say that? Yeah, you could say that, but that might confuse you guys. Okay, you know what? I have a better example. Kabirun. Al-Muslimu kabirun. Nadhifun. Let's go with that. And I know you might not know what that means. That's okay. But for the sake of example, I tried to give an easier example here. All right, so al-Muslimu, you guys know. Kabir, I'm pretty sure you know. It means big, right? Nadhif means clean, tidy, something like that, right? So here the first word is rafa because there's nothing coming before it. Kabir is also in the state of rafa. For a reason you guys also know, this is a nominal sentence, a jumla ismiya. This word is the khabar, okay? But now notice here, there is a word coming beforehand. So in that case, why is this still in the state of rafa? Didn't I just say that the word that comes before it, if there's a word before it, it should necessitate it being in another case, right? That's what I had just said. That's true, except the key is that it's all about what comes before that word. Certain words have to be raised, or not raised, certain words have to be put beforehand for it to be in a different state. Specifically, so they call it a huruf al-jar, meaning the prepositions, we'll say that word for now, the prepositions or the letters, oftentimes it's the letters. Letters are prepositions that specifically indicate the state of jar. And later on today, I do plan to, actually, you know what, I might just, let's just introduce them now. I know two people have raised their hand. Just give me a quick second. I'm going to introduce these to you now. It's a good time because this is going to be introduced in the video lesson later on, but I'll go ahead and introduce them now. Will you guys have to know this? Yes. I'm not sure. I'm sure your teachers will eventually expect you to know it. These are the basics that I do expect you to know. There's a long list of them, but there's certain ones that are much more common than others, okay? So, and I'm going to get to answering your question, but this is part of the answer. So the following, no, let me make this easier. The following are huruf al-jar, okay? So the first one is min, which means from, min ila, it means to, and then min ila an. This is hard to translate. Let's just say about. Sometimes it can mean from. It just depends on the context. You know, min ila an ala. On or upon. An ala fi. In. Ba. With, but it just depends. Calf, like just a calf by itself. Actually, I'll just do it like that. I'll go ahead and show it like this because this is how it actually comes in the text, right? It's the same letter. Calf or calf. This means like or such as. Calf lamb. Or usually like this. And this means for. Yeah, let's see if there's something in the chat. Oh, you have these in your text. Okay. Oh, awesome. That's good to know. Okay. Well, they're also here right now. So that means you have covered it. Excellent. Good. All right. So these are the, I think there's 8 here total. Yeah, there's 8 here total. There's a lot more than these 8, but these are the most common. And these are the ones that usually people are expected to learn from the beginning. So yes, do you have to memorize this? Yes, absolutely. I would recommend it because in the Quran and other texts, this comes very, very commonly. Okay. So, I'm going to go ahead and explain this real quick, and then I'll get back to the question to explain this because it ties directly and associated directly with the question. So min, I think, is pretty clear, and I'll give an example for each, but I think min would be rather clear. So let's just say min al-muslimi, okay? Just means from the Muslim, okay? Now, if I said ila, so for example, I don't know if you guys know all the verbs yet, but I'm going to use a common verb example. ذهبت إلى المسجد. I'm sure you guys know what masjid means. Okay, this means I went to the mosque, masjid, right? So the point is, let's see here, with or by. Where did that? Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could say by. Not. I would stick with. I'm not sure if by is the best translation. It kind of depends. It depends on the context. Usually with is a little more accurate, but again, it just totally different. So I say that right with the caveat that it's not always. It just depends on the context, especially when it comes to Quran. It could be like other things as well. So yeah, you're welcome. No worries. So an means, okay, so an, you know what, an easy example, if you guys ever end up studying hadith in a formal way, you'll see this used. Sami'atu an, you know, kada wa kada, like I heard from, okay? Should probably put all the harakat here. Sami'atu, it means I heard from. Ala is, you know, pretty self-explanatory. Ala ta. Before I continue further, I forgot to mention, notice at the end of all these words, I'm putting a kasra, as in at the end of the word following the harf jar, right? That's the whole point of the huruf al-jar. That's why I'm going through all this, because all of these words, these specific 8 words, and of course others too, but for our purposes right now, these 8 words, the word after them will be in the state of jar, specifically and only, exclusively in the state of jar. Okay, that's why we're introducing this. That's why they're called the huruf al-jar. These are the huruf, or prepositions, or oftentimes just letters, that indicate the following word after to be in the state of jar. Okay, so keep that in mind. ذهبت إلى المسجد. I'm saying masjidi, not masjidu, not masjida, masjidi. Okay. Sami'tu an. Okay, so an, let's just say anil ustadi. Okay, you guys know what ustad means, I hope. Ustadi means teacher. I heard from so of course they wouldn't necessarily say this in the context of hadith. I can't just give that as an example here, but this is still a sentence. Sami'tu an anil ustadi, the, right, with the kasra. And for simplicity's sake, you guys know that for dual and for plural, it's aini or ina, right? Muslimaini, muslimina. For the sake of simplicity, I'm just using um, singular isms, singular asma, singular ism here, okay? So that instead of, I don't want to worry about dual and plural right now. I just want to make sure that the concept is clear, okay? So remember that for a singular, it's a kasra at the end. So I'm saying sami'tu anil ustadi, the, okay? So an makes something into the state of jar. Ala as wa ala tawilati, okay? On the table or upon the table, either one. In. So for example, I'm sure you guys have heard the expression fi sabilillah. They say it commonly in the masjid when they're trying to look for donations, right? Fi sabilillah. So this literally means in the path of Allah, right? We'll say that. So notice, oh I forgot. So notice here, fi sabili. This is why they say fi sabili, not fi sabilu or fi sabilillah. Fi sabilillahi. Okay. Now with a really easy example that you guys are, I'm sure, all commonly aware of is this one. Bismillahi. All right. Because this really is B. Let me do it like this. B. How about that? Like this. There we go. B plus ism plus the word Allah. Of course, lafzul jalala is what we normally say out of respect for the name of Allah, but that's kind of a separate separate issue. Can phi be translated as for? It can be. That's a good question. That's a very good question, in fact. Yes, it can be. Usually, it's safe to say, I would venture to say 80% of the time, it's safe to translate phi as in, but it can be translated as for. So you bring up a good point, and it's a tangent, but it's a useful tangent to know. Please be aware that the caveat behind translations is that there's no such thing as a perfect translation. I mean, some words maybe. So for example, the word arnab means rabbit. I don't think there's any other way you can interpret that word. The word tufaha means apple. There's no other way to interpret that word. Ustad means teacher. I guess you can maybe possibly interpret in other ways, but generally speaking, that means teacher, right? So some words, they're pretty easy to translate. But the vast majority of words are not so simple to translate, especially as you guys get into more advanced vocabulary, especially when in relation to the Quran, right? The Quran sometimes uses rather simple words. If I can say that safely, I'm not sure, but many times it uses words that are not easy to translate, and they're not. I mean, why do you think it is that the mufassirin, the scholars of tafsir, have to devote their entire lives, 30, 40 plus years to have deep understanding of the Quran, right? This is one of the reasons that it's not easy to translate things in the Quran, because these words are quite deep. I mean, it's the Arabic language is, especially classical Arabic, is quite a deep language. So to answer your question, yes. Let's see here. No problem at all. So fi, yes, it usually means in, but it can mean for as well. It just depends on the context. I have seen examples where the word fi could mean in, and it could also mean with or by. It can also mean for. So it just depends upon the context that you're using it in. And so therefore, I would definitely recommend all of you, like, yes, especially in the beginning, I do recommend, like, learn that ala means on, learn that fi means in, learn that ba means with, learn that kaf, which we'll get to, means like or such as, learn that an means about or from, learn that ila means to, learn that min means from. But keep in the back of your mind that these translations are not perfect, and that whenever you're translating from Arabic to English, you're going to have to change the translation from it being a literal translation to something that makes more sense with the conventions of the English language, right? Because when you translate from Arabic to English and vice versa from English to Arabic, you have to keep in mind the conventions of the language, the things with which the speakers of that language use to convey their point, right? So sometimes a literal bare bones translation won't work. And trust me, you guys will see this. especially in level 1B, I think is the next level for you guys. I've been told that level 1A is more of the grammar, which you definitely need to, to learn the language without a doubt. You can't learn the language without the grammar, and vice versa too. But in level 1B, you guys will, I believe, start more of the analysis of both basic texts and snippets of the Quran, like certain things that are at your level. So you'll start to see where the translations aren't always as clean as we like them to be. But anyway, that was a very long explanation, sorry. But basically the point is, yes, you can translate it as for. You can also translate it as in. You can translate it as or. I like to go with just a translation of in for simplicity's sake for beginning students, but just be aware for everyone that these translations are not perfect and you do have to put in some leeway for other possible interpretations, okay? Welcome to the Arabic language. Welcome to Quranic studies. It's never simple, right? There's always, this is why people take out years and years and years to study, right? Alhamdulillah, I've studied for 3 years and I barely, literally, I'm not out of being humble, but honestly, I barely scratched the surface. So, okay, but anyway, that was a long explanation. If you have any more questions, guys, let me know. Oh, there were 2 raised hands. Please, I want to finish this point and then please keep your question in mind. I will get to you back. Just please remind me if I forget, okay? But I want to answer this question that the student had, and it's kind of a long explanation to get to there. So Bismillah, this is ba plus ism plus Allah. Now, I know that normally Bismillah, how do they translate this normally, right? In the name of Allah, right? Look, this is a perfect example of the question that was given. Here is an example. You could say with the name of Allah. I actually don't see a problem with that, but if you want to say in, that's fine too. If you stick with the mindset that ba only means with, then you're going to miss out on other possible translations. So this is an example where it can mean other things, though with is also just suitable in my opinion. But the point is, let's not worry about the translation as much right now. The point is this ba right here is the reason why ism has a kasra at the end. We don't say bismu, we don't say bisma, we say bismi, bismillahi, okay? And if you're wondering why the word Allah has a kasra at the end, it's because lafzul jalala, the word Allah, grammatically speaking, is mudaf ilayh. Okay, you guys remember the idafa thing, the idafa construction? So the word, sorry, whoever's speaking, can you just mute yourself? I just wanted to make sure that I don't want to interrupt anyone else. If you have any questions, feel free to just interject when I'm done with this. Thank you. So the word Allah is, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because it's a side point, but it has a kasra at the end because it's an idafa, right? Because ism is mudaf, and then the word Allah is mudaf ilayh, okay? Anywho, the point is B plus ism, that right there is going to be, it has a kasra at the end. Why? Because this is the ism majroor. It's the word after the harf jar, which is the thing that makes the following word have a kasra, okay? Okay, so now I want to go through these last 2. I'm spending a lot of time because this is actually really critically important stuff that you will need to know. This word, this kaf, oh, by the way, these last 3, let me put it like this. These last 3 always have to be attached to something, okay? Notice that the first few, min is not attached to the word Muslim, right? Ila is not attached to the word masjid. It's separate. An is not attached to the word ustad. It's separate. Ala is not attached to the word tawila. It's separate. Fi is not attached to the word sabil. It's separate. But the last 3 are. The last 3 are always attached to the word. It's because these are separate letters, okay? That's what I'm trying to do. These last 3 are separate letters by themselves, right? Ba is a letter. Kaf is a letter, as you'll see. Lam is a letter, as you'll see. These letters are by themselves. A letter can't really ever, as far as I know, they can't ever stand by themselves, right? They have to be put with other letters to have a word, right? So this is an example of it. These things, they are still considered huruf. I don't know if they really consider prepositions in the in the English language rather. I'm not sure about that part. I just know that these are called huruf. This is the issue with translating from Arabic to English because it's not always perfect, right? But the point is that these 3 are letters in and of themselves, but they're still huruf al-jar, and specifically, these are specifically just letters. That's why they have to be associated with the word that follows, okay? And they have to be put together. They can't be separate. So now for this one, I would like to go ahead and show you guys an example in the Quran. I'm just going to go ahead and type it up real quick. it's 1424. Okay, so I'll go ahead and put it here for the sake of brevity. I don't want to spend too much time on it. If you're looking for this in the Quran, it's going to be Surah 14, which is Surah to Ibrahim, Ayah 24. What I'm interested in is this part right here. I'm gonna have to type it out directly because I won't be able to copy paste all this. Okay, so let's just go with that part only, so just for the sake of showing you what it is. So in the Quran, I'll do it like this so you know it's part of this. Kashajaratin. Okay. I don't want you to worry about tayyibatin. Tayyibatin is what's considered a slifa or an adjective. Okay, but it's not part of the grammatical lesson, so we'll just focus on this. So this is basically kashajaratin. Okay. The ayah is talking about so for those of you can see, do you not see how Allah compares a good word to a good tree? Kashajaratin tayyibatin is what we're interested in. It means like a good tree. Okay. Its roots is firmer but its branches reach the sky. That's fine. I'm not worried so much about the rest of the translation. I would like to just focus on this part right here. This is ka, which is what we're interested in, right? Ka plus shajara. So, and then the shajara, shajara means tree. All right. I'm not always aware of how much vocab you guys know, but this is a good thing to know, especially since it's in the Quran. Shajara means tree, and then the kaf means such as or like. All right. So this literally means like the tree. And what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to give the whole ayah, but I'm going to give the other parts of the ayah so that you can understand what this means in context. So kalimatin tayyibatin, kalimatin tayyibatin, kashaja, eventually, there we go, kashajaratin tayyibatin. So what it's saying is, a good word is like a good tree. I wonder how they translate tayyiba here. Yeah, they said good too. Okay. A good word is like a good tree, okay? So notice this kaf is being translated to like. A good tree is in the similitude of a good a good word is in the similitude of a good tree. That's a complicated way of saying a good word is like a good tree. So that kaf means such as or like, all right? Just depending on how you know what the context of the word, all right? So that's how you use kaf. And notice here, first of all, this kaf is attached to the word shajara. This kaf is not part of the core of the word shajara, right? The word itself is shajara, like I explained up here. The word is shajara. Shajara means tree. That kaf is added. It doesn't mean that kaf is part of the word. In the same way, when we say Bismillah, that ba is not part of ism. The word is ism, right? But the ba is attached to it. Similarly, that kaf is the harf that's attached to the word shajara. Just be aware, it looks like kaf is part of the word shajara. It's not. Shajara is the word, kaf is what is attached to it. This will just take like exposure and practice to get used to. Now remember though that kaf is by itself. A letter but cannot stand by itself. Therefore it must be attached. So that's why that harf jar is attached to the word shajara. Just like how the ba is attached to the word to the word ism in Bismillah. So I hope that makes sense. I'm going to go through the last I'm going to go through the last one, which is the following. This one, let me think here, an easy word for you. Okay, let's just, yeah, for the sake of simplicity, let's just say this. Lil Muslimi, for the Muslim. Okay. Again, depends on the context. Lam can be translated to other things, sure, but generally speaking, it translates to li. Or sorry, it means translates to for. Now notice here, I'm going to put it like this. This is the following. Notice that again, lam makes the following word into have a kasra. That's why there's a kasra here. Notice that the lam here is by itself, therefore we have to attach it to the word. But notice that we don't write this. This is important to note, right? This is also in the video. We don't write this. This is literally, if we put that lam directly, so this is the first lam, and this is the alif, right? Because if you notice here, isn't there an alif here? There's an alif in al-Muslim, right? That alif gets deleted. Please keep that in mind. This is important, right? You do have to add the lam, but you don't just add the lam. You have to delete that alif that comes right after the lam and right before the word al-Muslim, right? Because al-Muslim, when we say that, there's an alif there, right? You have to delete the lam. So keep that in mind. The alif is at the beginning of the ism majroor is deleted. Okay, so that's why it's lil muslimin. So keep that in mind. The alif is deleted. Okay, now I do recommend that you know these 8. Of course, as I said, there's more than these 8, but these 8 are the it's safe to say these are the most common, and you'll see these a lot in the Quran and in other places. Even in modern Arabic, they use these two. Now, this was kind of a really long answer, but I would like to go back to the original question as to what about if the first word is the harf jar always the first word, or what about or actually correct me, whoever, I think it was Khatira who asked the question. From what I understand your question to be is that if we give this example here, al-Muslim, of course, is in the state of rafa because it's by default, there's nothing before it. What about this? The word kabir, there is a word before it, which is al-Muslim. So why is this word in the state of rafa? Well, number one, it's khabar, right? It's the khabar because of the jumla ismiya. But it's not just that. If you look at the word before, this word is not one of the huruf al-jar. And you guys will learn eventually there's also huruf al-nasab, meaning the huruf that make the following word into the nasab state, right? The nasab state, which is the fatha for singular words. So what's key to remember is it has to be preceded by something, but it's not just preceded by anything. It's specifically preceded by one of these letters, the huruf al-jar, okay? Al-Muslim, that word is not one of the huruf al-jar. Therefore, this word is not made into the state of jar. Same with nadhif. Nadhif, as it turns out, is a sifa. It's an adjective, right? But also, there's 2 words from coming before it. It just so happens that these 2 words are not the huruf al-jar, right? These 2 words are just other isms. They're isms, by the way. They're not harf. That's another indication, right? So that's how you know that these words are all in the state of rafa. This first word is in the state of rafa because nothing comes before it. This word is in the state of rafa because it's a khabar and there's no harf jar coming before it. This word is in the state of rafa because it's an adjective. And remember, guys, that for an adjectival phrase, this word will agree with the word before it. And as it turns out, this word is in the state of rafa, so this word also has to be in the case ending of rafa. But also because what comes before it is not harf jar. So,
okay.
yes. Sorry? Hello?
Fine.
Yes?
Just I want to make sure that when it is in the state of rafa, it can be preceded with another word, but it should not be the huruf al-jar.
Precisely,
If
100%.
it comes in the middle of the sentence.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it can come in the middle or end or anywhere, as long as it's not preceded by the harf jar. Yes, huruf al-jar.
Thank you.
Yep, if it is preceded by the huruf al-jar or the huruf al-nasab, as you guys will learn eventually, then it becomes in the state of jar or the state of nasab. For your purposes, I don't think you've gotten to the nasab ones yet, so just focus on the jar.
Okay.
Someone else, yeah, does someone else have a question? I think someone else was raising their hand.
It was me, but alhamdulillah, it got answered.
Oh, perfect. Excellent. Cool. All right. Well, if anyone else has any questions, you can raise your hand, put in the chat, just, interject at any point. So, okay. So that was the concept of huruf al-jar. As you guys can see, this is why knowing this, the ins and outs of the rules of the case endings, the rafa, nasab, and jar, that's why it's so important, because it comes up constantly. And this will not be the last time you hear about it. I'm sure you'll hear about it in levels 2, 3, and 4, because it all builds up. Grammar is not an isolated science, just like language is not an isolated science in any language, but especially Arabic. You have to know it really well at all times because it always builds up on it, right? And the material you learn, it's like you're going to be learning the bigger picture you're going to be learning more and more of the bigger picture as you go along. So you guys are learning the basics now. Eventually you'll learn like even more details about the basics and even more details about the same concept. You'll see what I mean when you guys get to level 2, 3, and 4, etc. I'm going to take this up because I don't want to confuse anyone there. Okay, so if you have any questions, just feel free to interject at any point. In the meantime, right, so we just covered the huruf al-jar. How would I translate this to? Oh, yes, Mizan, did you raise your hand?
Assalamu alaikum. Yes, I did. I'm
Yes,
sorry. I came in late, so you might have translated it already. So is the translation, the Muslim is very clean, or?
Yeah, no worries. Where is it right here? Oh, yes, good point. I didn't translate this. So, this is actually a good test of you guys' knowledge here. This is going to be, you know what? Does anyone want to take want to try out this? We have limited time, but I want to see if you guys can. This is a combination of 2 different grammar lessons that we've already covered. Does anyone want to try translating al-Muslimu kabirun nadhifun? Okay. I can't actually see who raised their hands. How do I see that here? Isn't there a way to see
What's the
that?
question?
So if you go towards the bottom of the Google Docs, somewhere it's like right here. Al-Muslimu, sorry, al-Muslimu kabirun nadhifun. The question is, can anyone try translating that for me? Keeping in mind 2 grammar rules. Hanan, did you raise your hand? You want to try?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd like to try just for practice.
Mhm.
Al-Muslimu, so it's in the definite state, so it's the Muslim.
Good.
But because you mentioned that it's an adjective of phrase, so maybe I would translate it as the older Muslim, or the old Muslim is clean, or the elderly Muslim is clean.
That's a good
Is
try.
my guess.
Yeah, that's a good try. You definitely there is an adjective of phrase in there somewhere,
Kabir.
but there's also a nominal sentence, right? So it's both. That's why this is a good example, because this really tests your knowledge to see if you understand it. So you're right, there is an adjective of phrase. So what you had said was that the big Muslim is clean. I think that's what I heard. That would be correct if we had this. In fact, you know what? This is going to be let me put it right here. Okay, this is going to be here. If you, I did it again. Let's try this. All right, if you said the following, al-Muslimu al-kabiru nadhifun. This is the big Muslim, big or great, depending on how you look at it. The bigger Muslim is clean. Okay. Now, before we get to that, I would like to explain this example, which basically I'm just going to copy paste on here, so it's a little easier to read. Now, this one here is the following. This is why knowing how to distinguish between a nominal sentence and an adjective or phrase is so important, right? And I hope, by the way, just a tangent, please make sure that you guys eventually learn the Arabic, right? A nominal sentence is jumla ismiya, and the adjective or phrase, you could say tarkib tawsifi, though that's not really common. They say mawsuf and sifa, mawsuf wa sifa, right? So here, the first thing to remember is we're starting with the jumla ismiya because the first word is an ism, right? It has to be a jumla ismiya. It has to be a nominal sentence, because by definition, a nominal sentence is that which is started by an ism. So we know that therefore it's the Muslim. Okay. Now we look at the following word. Remember that for this actually. It's not what I wanted. There we go. Remember that for an adjective or phrase, they have to agree in all of the gender, right? The gender, ending, what's the next one? Number and definiteness, right? Here, it agrees in everything except the definiteness. Al-Muslim kabirun. Al-Muslimu kabirun. Al-Muslim has alif lam, right? Kabirun does not. And the kabir also has tanween, right? But that's because it has tanween, because it does not have alif lam. Kabir does not have alif lam, therefore we cannot say that these two are that kabir is a sifa or an adjective for Muslim. We cannot say that. Why? Because an adjective is the one unique thing in the grammar books where the adjective has to agree in all 4 aspects of gender ending case number, gender case ending number and definiteness with the word that it's describing, what they call the mawsuf, right? So because it doesn't have alif lam, it cannot be used to describe Muslim. Does that make sense? So therefore, and if it doesn't make sense, stop me. I'm just talking a lot here. Kabir cannot be the adjective for Muslim because it has to agree in the definiteness, and it doesn't because there's no alif lam at the beginning. And remember, if it has alif lam, it cannot have tanween, and if it does not have alif lam, it will have tanween, right? They're opposites. So anyway, this word is indefinite, this word is definite, therefore they cannot be used to describe each other. However, this word is indefinite, and this word is indefinite. They're both indefinite, and as it turns out, they're both masculine, and they're both singular, and they're both in the state of rafa, right? Because of the dhammatain at the end. Therefore, this nadif is the adjective for the kabir. So therefore, if we say like this, that blank we don't know yet, but the Muslim, what we do know is the Muslim, blank, and then we know clean and big. Okay. Oh, I see. Okay, you know what? Actually, guys, I'm sorry. I can 1 second. Let me just see here. Muslim, great.
So is it the clean the Muslim is clean and big?
Yes.
Clean.
Yes, exactly. However, I just realized I used an example that
Yes,
isn't
you
quite
did.
clear. Yeah, it's not completely clear. Okay. All right. Sorry, guys. I would like to do the following. The reason why this is different is because
Yeah.
this uses something called wow. This wow is called opt. It's a separate grammar rule. So I am actually going to delete this because this will only confuse you guys more. The reason that it will confuse you more is because that wow that you see in the middle there, yes, it translates to and, but it's something called atlas. It's a separate grammar rule that I don't think you've learned yet, and that's just going to confuse you more. So therefore, I'm actually going to go ahead and not include this example. I would prefer to include this example here, okay? So sorry about that. I have to keep in mind that it's not, I have to make sure that I use examples that apply to the grammar that you're using, okay? So hopefully this one makes a little bit more sense now. Al-Muslimu al-Kabiru nadhifun. What does this mean? This means that, actually, I'm gonna take this out. Hanan, can I ask you to try again? I don't know if you already saw the transition, but can you try this example real quick?
Yeah. Thank you. Al-Muslimu, the Muslim. Okay, now because you've added al, so the big or great Muslim is clean.
Very good. Excellent. Good. So yes, you're correct in this situation. Kabir is going to be the sifa or the adjective for Muslim because they both have alif lam, they're both definite, and they're also in the state of rafa. They're also singular and they're also masculine. And this, I think that's it. And they're both definite. But remember that I'm focusing more on the definite, indefinite part because that's usually the one thing that's different between an adjectival phrase and a nominal sentence. Usually the other three aspects already agree anyway. So usually the one thing that does not agree is the definiteness. That's why I'm focusing on it. But of course, with an adjectival phrase, they all have to agree anyway. But you see how then this word does not have alif lam. That's how you know that it's not going to be adjectival phrase. And we know that this is a khabar because the khabar is indefinite, right? Khabar is indefinite. And it makes sense because now we know that this word is going to be khabar. It's going to go ahead and it now explains the rest of it. So the big / great Muslim is clean, okay? Speaking of, because this is confusing, I'll go ahead and mention this following, okay? If we had an example like this, oops. What if we had an example, and I would like for someone to give me, anyone can try, can anyone tell me what this example means?
I can try.
Sure, please.
Because they are looks like adjectival phrase because they are matching with the case ending and the definiteness. So these are the Muslim is Mawsuf and Kabir and Nazif is Sifat.
Excellent, very good. So then, good, the Kabir and the Nadif are both the Sifa, right? So can someone tell me what this would translate to?
The clean and great Muslim.
Very good. Excellent. Very, very good. So this would be the clean and great Muslim. Now notice here I put and in parentheses. That's why this is a good example of how translations, you have to tweak it a bit, right? That and is implied, okay? Because remember, you could say the clean great Muslim. I guess that's fine too. But to clarify, I put the clean and great Muslim, right? Now you could put a wow in here. That's fine. But I don't want to, because that is a separate grammar rule that's for another time. And I don't want to introduce grammar rules you haven't studied yet, because it'll just be too much, right? I'd rather focus on what we're focusing on now. The point of I put and is because for translation purposes, you can tweak it like that. In Arabic, though, you don't have to put an and or a wow. You don't have to put that, right? This is fine in of itself. But the point is, notice how the clean, we're saying clean and great Muslim. The clean is an adjective and great is an adjective for Muslim. Why? Because Nadif now agrees in definiteness and gender and case ending and the other number with Muslim. Here it did not. Here it's only indefinite because there's no alif lam. That's why this is the khabar. That's why we say is, right? It's becomes a nominal sentence. Here, they both of the words have alif lam, just like this word has alif lam. Therefore, it's going to be an adjective. Now, that being said, can someone tell me, if I just said al-muslimu al-kabiru al-nadhifu, the clean and great Muslim, anyone can you tell me, is this a complete sentence or not?
It's not a complete sentence
No.
Good. Why is that?
because it doesn't, well, I get caught up with my English, and it does not make sense as it is, as a complete sentence. It's more of an adjectival phrase.
Perfect. Yeah, and you're right. That's also how the Arab grammarians see it too. This is one situation where English and Arabic grammar coincide. Yes, it's not a complete meaning, because when you say al-muslimu al-kabiru an-nadhifu, the clean and great Muslim, ... Okay, the reader is expecting something more, or the listener is expecting something more. So therefore, ... You're right. It's not a complete sentence. So good. That's a kind of a tangent from the point, but this is good review, because this is stuff that always confuses students, and the more we practice, the better we get, right? And the point of the office hours is not to throw a lot of stuff at you. It's just to focus. It's to solidify what you've already learned in your classes. So, okay, cool. If any questions, let me know. But I'm glad we did that, because that hopefully clarified some more things. Now, this is the concept of harf jar. As you can see, it's a critically important concept to know. I'm going to go ahead and see now. Let's see what the next thing is. Right. So we just pretty much, I went over the vast majority of this, okay? If you guys, I think you guys can see my screen, I'm not sure, but prepositions in English indicate the meaning of when or where. Same in Arabic, right? Just something to keep in mind. Like if you notice the huruf al-jar that we went through, the min, ila, an, ala, fi, ba, kaf, lam, they all indicate the meaning of when or where for the most part, okay? So now we're going to go through this following thing. There's something called a dharf. Good, we have still 25 minutes. That's perfect timing. And again, guys, stop me if there's any confusion at all, okay? And I'm happy to answer questions. Now we're going to cover the next topic, which is what's called al-dharf. Oh, Hanan, yes, go ahead. Hanan, do you have a question?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't have the question in front of me. I just wanted to ask, idaf ilay is what exactly? Like just a quick definition. Idaf ilay.
Sure.
And
It's
mudaf?
actually, yeah, no worries. I'll quickly put it here. It's actually not idaf, it's called mudaf, but I'll put it here.
Mudaf.
So yeah, the concept is called idafa, which, okay, let me put the harakat. And this won't take too long. If you have any questions afterward, you're welcome to talk with me afterward if you're still confused as well, but I'll give you a quick understanding of this. Idafa means possession. Let me give you an example, easy one. Okay, an easy example that you're probably used to seeing. Bait. Oh, okay, a good example. I'm sure you guys have seen this used example. Baitul mal. right? It's a common charity organization, right? Baytul Mali. So this literally means house of money. Okay, literally I'm talking about, right? Linguistically speaking. And for those of you interested, Baytul Mal, historically speaking, was you could call it like the bank or like the reservoir of money back when the Muslims had the the Khilafah, the Caliphate, it's not really used in that way anymore. I guess it just depends. That's a separate topic for another day. Anywho, so there's two parts of it. There's the mudaf, which is the first word of the idafa, construction, and it does not take alif lam. This is a quick like Cliff Notes, quick abbreviation of it, okay? The mudaf is the first word. It does not take alif lam. It can be in any case ending, okay? Usually the absence of alif lam is the easiest way to detect a mudaf. Something to keep in mind. Now the mudaf ilayh is the second word of the idafa. Oops, let me do it like this. There, that's what I want. That's not what I want. Okay. Technology is failing me now. Okay, perfect. Second word of idafa. And it is always in the case ending of jar, with some exceptions, but generally speaking, this is what it is. For your purposes, this is always the case. And it may or may not have alif lam, though usually will have alif lam. Okay. So, and the point of idafa is it's possessive, meaning it the following form. The blank of blank. Okay. The house of money, Baytul Mal. You can say Baytullah, the house of Allah. Okay. This is another way of saying money's house, Allah's house, right? When the apostrophe s, that entire English equivalent of the grammar behind that is idaf, okay? Because it basically tells you possession. The Baytullah Baytul Mal meaning the house of money, meaning the house in which there is money. Okay, so the whole point is that it's about possession. So if we say Baytullah, this is literally saying house of Allah, right? Because it's Allah's house. Allah apostrophe s house. This is what the concept of idafa is. All right. The first word will not have alif lam. Okay. Except if in very rare circumstances. But Baytullah will not have alif lam. The mudaf will not have alif lam. That's like the first indication that you're looking at idafa. It can be in any state. It can be in any case ending. The second word, in this case, Allah or Lafzul Jalala, will have a kasra at the end. That's why we say Baytullahi. It will have a kasra at the end. It will always have a kasra, or I mean, unless it's dual or plural, then it depends. But it will always be in the state of jar is the point. Okay, and it can or cannot have alif lam, just depending. It depends. So I hope that answered your question. That's a really quick, brief overview of that concept. So, okay. And if you have other questions, I want to get through this, but you're welcome to ask me after the session, or you can also just message me directly about it as well. That's fine too. You're welcome, of course. Al-dhuruf. Now, I should put this here. Dharf, and it's plural, which is dhuruf. Okay, we kind of went through that already. This generally translates to prepositions. Just be wary of that translation. That's all I'm going to say there. So, please be aware that the following dhuruf are isms. I don't like saying the word isms, but I'm going to go ahead and say it here just because I don't want to make it too difficult for you. But the actual plural of ism is asma. Anywho, dhuruf are isms. This is really important to know. Okay, dhuruf are not huruf. Okay, so they are not huruf. Okay, so you guys learned the huruf al-jar. Min, ila, an, ala, fi, ba, kaf, lam, etc. Those are huruf. These are not huruf. You'll see that they have the same function. which is confusing to students. They do have the same function, but these are not, the huruf are actually isms and they're not huruf. Remember, there's 3 types of words: ism, fi'l, and harf. Why do they have that that categorization and a delineation like that? Because they don't overlap. A word that is an ism can never be a fi'l or a verb, and a verb can never be a harf, and a harf can never be an ism. They have to be separate. They're always like that, okay? So keep that in mind. They don't overlap. So a dharf is an ism, which means they cannot be a harf, okay? So keep that in mind. Now, I'm sure you guys have learned there's some common dhuruf. By the way, just like with huruful jar, you have to memorize them. There's no way to determine what is a harf jar. You have to memorize them. Similarly, you have to memorize the dhuruf. There's certain patterns, but there's not really a rule for it. You just kind of have to know that these are dhuruf, okay? Yeah, we just, okay, cool. We just went over this. So this, if you guys can see the YouTube thing that I'm sharing, this is exactly what we just went through. Right. Okay. So that's
I have a
that.
question.
Absolutely, yes.
Because I got confused. This is where I really got confused, because when we started out, it said isms were noun, pronouns, and adjectives.
Mhm.
And then it's reference prepositions as being isms.
Yep.
So I really got confused because the words, and I couldn't get an understanding of how words behind in that were isms. I'm confused.
Okay. Is your question, why are we saying prepositions are, or why are we saying dhuruf are isms?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, this is why I don't like translations, because prepositions always throws off students. Because when they hear the word preposition, they think ism, and then they think, okay, well, what about words like min, ila, an, ala, fi, ba, kaf, na? Because when you translate those, they're huruf al-jar, but when you translate them, they translate into prepositions. So, or at least no worries, Khatir. I understand if you have to go, that's totally fine, no problem at all. This, inshallah, I will send out this Google Doc and recording later on, so you can benefit from this later as well. So, Shamin, let me know if I'm not answering your question, because it's kind of difficult to explain this topic, but basically, I don't want you to look at it from the lens of English. Preposition, yes, that word is there, but it'll just confuse you, because there are 2 types of prepositions. There's the dhuruf and there's the huruf, okay? So my advice to you is, don't look at the English even. And I'll give you my own example. I didn't even know that this thing was translated to a preposition until I started working with Fawakih. When I studied it with my teacher, who would translate things to English, but my teacher, and I'm really thankful she did this, she insisted on us learning the things in Arabic. And as hard as it was at the time, I'm grateful for it, because I didn't get confused as much. So my advice to you is, don't worry about the word prepositions. I put it there just so that you have some kind of equivalent for it, because I've noticed that Fawakih, they like to translate everything into English, which is fine to do. But it gets confusing. So my advice to you is, don't learn the English. Unless your teacher requires it, then I guess you don't have a choice. That's a bit different. But for the sake of more advanced studies, like, I'm thinking like, years down the road when you guys learn more advanced topics, the English will not benefit you, because they'll all be using the Arabic versions of these things. So just don't worry about the English, and know that dhuruf are only isms, and that they are not huruf. Does that answer your question? I hope.
It does, but
Are you still confused?
I guess because where they list the words, and I guess because the concept in my mind of an ism was a noun, a pronoun, and an adjective. Those things that are names or buildings or countries or whatever, and then something that describes. But these words don't, well, it doesn't describe it in my concept, I guess.
Yeah. You're right, because the definition of an ism is a word that can stand by itself and has independent meaning in and of itself, right?
Right.
Now, are you guys able to see this, the YouTube video that I'm sharing? Because I want to show you something in here.
Yes.
Oh, you can? Okay, cool. All right. So, well, this is stuff we already covered. We covered this. We're good to go here. We covered that. We're trying to get to, okay, here. We just talked about that, right? We'll get to that. Oh, by the way, most of the dhuruf, let me just mention that now while I'm at it. Most of the dhuruf end in one fatha. Okay, so just keep that in mind, and you'll. I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen examples of this. I'm gonna get to this. I just want to see. There, here we go. Okay, so I think I know what you're saying, Charmaine. Basically, these words, they don't really, in English at least, they don't have meaning in and of themselves, right? If you said qabla, before, excuse me, before, after, above, under. I mean, yeah, you're right. These words in and of themselves don't have meaning. So, yes, it is true that the isms, even in the Arabic language, are defined as something that has meaning in and of itself. But this is also what I mean by nothing. Well, not true. Most things are not that dichotomous, or not that black and white when it comes to the Arabic language. These definitions have a little bit of leeway. I would say that this is an example of where there's an exception and a little bit of leeway, and a little bit of leniency in the rule. These words, agreed, in the English language, they don't have meaning in and of themselves. And also in Arabic, they don't have meaning in and of themselves. If I just said qabl, that doesn't have meaning in and of itself. If I said the word taht, which means under, it doesn't have meaning in and of itself. So the reason I actually did look into this, because someone did ask me, our group, about this question some time ago, and one of my other teachers looked into this. The reason for them being like this is twofold. Or sorry, the reason for these words being an ism, well, actually there's several reasons, but I'm going to focus on two reasons particularly that I found. Are number one, these words can take a tanween. Remember that isms, and only isms, take tanween, right? The dhammatain, kasratain, fathatain. These a verb can never ever take a tanween, ever. And a harf can never take a tanween. Those huruful jar, the 8 that we just went over and that you learned in class, they never can take tanween, right? These words can. Now I know in these examples there's no tanween, but the point is that they can take tanween. Now I will tell you that it's not common, okay? It's not common for these words to take tanween. You probably won't see it with tanween. And I'll explain to you shortly here the reason why. But the point is that they can technically take tanween, okay? That's the, in fact, I'll go ahead and write that in here. The dhuruf are considered isms, and again, I don't like using this word, but just so that it's clear to everyone what I'm talking about, so we're not confused. The words, the dhuruf are considered isms because, number one, they can take tanween, though they tend not to. Okay. Now, why do they tend not to? Here's the reason why. The dhuruf, you know what, to make it simple, the dharf, because we're going to be looking at them in singular examples. The dharf are usually in idafa form. Okay, so here comes the concept of idafa has crept up on us again. So they're usually in the form of are in idafa construction. Okay, so for example, if I said qabla al-mawti, this means before the death. In English, we just say before death, but the alif lam is there, so I just put the before the death. Now, this is, I hope this will answer your question, but this is also bringing us to the main concept that I wanted to get to as well. The key thing about, so the reason why the dhuruf and the huruf are confusing is because the end result is the same. The word after it is in the state of jar. Notice how the word maut is in the state of jar because it has a kasra at the end. That would make students want to think that qabl should be a harful jar, right? It should be one of the huruful jar, meaning the harf that makes the following word into jar. That is tempting to say. However, grammatically speaking, that is not the case. That would be an incorrect conclusion, because this is considered to be in an idafa form. Now remember, in an idafa form, just like how I said before, to give a summary of it, the mudaf ilay is always in the state of jar, right? However, I'll put it here. Idafa is not the same as harf harful jar, even though they both have kasra at the end. Okay, they both have kasra at the end. There's no doubt about that. But the key thing to understand is that while the end result is the same, the way in which it gets the means by which it comes to that end is different. Okay, the means to the result is different. For a harf jar, it's pretty clear. You have the harf al jar, and then you have the following word, which is ism majroor. It's in the state of jar. That's pretty simple. Qabl al-maut, yes, the following word is in a state of jar, but it's because it's an idafa form. This qabl is going to be mudaf, and remember the conditions of mudaf are there's no alif lam, and it can be in any state. In this case, it's in the state of nasab because of the fatha, and there's no alif lam, as expected. The mudaf can or cannot have alif lam. Usually it has alif lam. In this case, it does. And the key thing is it is in the state of jar. It has a kasra for a singular noun. So the reason why the dhuruf are considered isms is because number one, they can take tanween, but even though they tend not to, but they can. And also the dhuruf are in idafa construction. And let me put it like this: idafa, and the idafa is never applicable to the huruf. Okay, the idafa is only for the idafa is only for isms. Okay, so I know that I don't know if that even helps with because in the end of the day I didn't answer the conceptual question, which is okay, sure, the dhuruf take tanween, therefore, and only isms take tanween, fine, and the dharf is an idafa construction, and only isms can be idafa construction. But at the end of the day, why can't we just say that they're huruf because they have the same ending result? That's a good question, actually, and I don't know the answer to that. In fact, I'm not sure if there is an answer to that question because you guys will, if you delve really deep into various grammar books, like well, not the Ajrumiya, but like Qatr al-Nada, it's a really quite an advanced grammar book. Actually, I've heard that if you study the Qatr al-Nada and if you master that text, they say that you will have sufficed in your learning of Arabic grammar, period. Apparently, like you will have mastered Arabic grammar if you study that text. I myself have not studied that text. It's on my bucket list. But in any case, that's besides the point. The point is that the questions that the answer to that question is a very theoretical question, meaning that there's a lot of things in grammar that there's not really an answer for. There's not a definitive answer for, is what I mean. There are theoretical theories that could explain it, but there's not really there's not an answer to the to the why particularly. Oh, sure, I can write the book name. Yeah, I'll write why not? I'll write the book here. So again, you guys do not need to know this, okay? So I wouldn't break your neck on this. I wouldn't worry about this at all. But a beginner's text to grammar, and by the way, this is more of a review. It's not really a grammar unless you find a sharh, which is unless you find an analysis of the actual grammar of the text. That's fine. That's one thing. But this text, and I have studied it twice actually. This text is meant. It's a good thing that, by the way, Fawakih does teach this text. Al-Ajrumiyya. Okay, in English they just tend to say this. Okay, Al-Ajrumiyya. It's a common text for beginning students to study. This is the text that I was referring to. Qatar, actually, I think it's with the sukun. Qatarun Nada. Advanced book in grammar. Okay, when I say advanced, it's advanced. Okay, that's not a text for beginners whatsoever. If anything, I would probably struggle with that text too. That definitely takes a teacher. In any case, for those of you who are interested, you can, in fact, if it's easier, let me just go ahead and put it in the chat. But this is not that big of a deal. I mean, it's way beyond your level, of course. But for those of you who are interested, there you go. In any case, but to answer your question, or actually, Sharmin, let me know if I have not answered your question, but there is no answer to the why. I think it's a theory question. there's a lot of theory as to why this is the case, but it's not really a defined thing. This is one of the things that my opinion to you is, my advice to you rather, is to just go ahead and memorize the dhuruf. These words that you see in this thing right here, these are dhuruf, and these are just something that you have to memorize. The following word is a mudaf, and it's not considered a harf. Did I answer your question, or are you still confused?
Right, no, because I was about to say, I guess basically it's just one of the well, a collection of words that you have to memorize as isms.
Yes. Yes. Most other words, you can know that it's an ism because, you know, the word Muslim, that's obvious. It's a noun and it can stand by itself, right? That's pretty clear. A lot of words are like that, but these are the words that you'll have to memorize. Yes. It's the same like huruf al-jar. Those eight huruf you have to memorize. That, no, I mean, the fact that they're huruf should be a little more easier to understand, but why are they in jar? I don't know the answer to that. They just are. They make the following word jar. I mean, there are theories. I'm sure there are. I'm not well versed in those theories, but I just know that there are huruf al-jar, so they have to memorize them. So yes, this is something that you'll have to memorize. It's like in English. In English do we say the word psychology? Why is the P silent? I have no idea. It just is, you know. So yes, this is one of those things that I don't think you guys are at the level where you can go and read up on theory about this. I would not recommend that. Your brains would implode, trust me. So I would just focus on this. Yes, these words, even though they look like huruf, they are not huruf. They are isms, and the word that follows it is not ism majroor. It is actually a mudaf in the idafa construction. Okay. I hope that makes sense. If there are any other questions, do let me know. Time is actually up. However, I want to finish this. There's not really much left. So if any of you, I mean, no one should feel obliged to stay. You're welcome to leave at any point. I am recording this, so the recording will be, as you guys know, every week I send it out. So I'll send out the recording as well as this Google document in the Wednesday, Sunday respective level 1A groups. So you can, access it at any time. Absolutely, yes, Azir, that's true. The rules are totally different. No, not totally. Sometimes there's overlap, but usually they don't coincide. They're quite different from Arabic to English. So that's why you have to learn Arabic to access the Quran. A translation will never do it justice. Especially the Quran, like of all things, the Quran especially. So something to keep in mind. So anyway, if you guys do need to leave, feel free to, but I'm going to keep going with this material a little longer just to keep going. Wa alaikum assalam. Okay, well, no problem at all. I understand. Good night to you as well. I'll probably stop in 10 minutes. And if you have any lingering questions, you're welcome to ask me as I finish off this material. Oh, actually, it looks like that is it. Right, we just kind of talked about, right, they are identical, but this is kind of, you have to know that these are idafa. This is, I don't know, this is not really the, well, okay, so that's actually the last concept, but there was another thing that I wanted to mention here. Did we talk about, yeah, we talked about that. I'm wondering, oh, okay, here we go. Okay, I will also like you guys to know, keep in mind that this is an important point. The dhuruf usually end in fatha, okay? This is an important point to note. This is a good way to, and you'll learn the reason for this later, but this is a good point to know right now. If you've noticed that, like this entire picture of dhuruf here, they all have a fatha at the end. Usually that's the case. Now, in the Quran, are there exceptions to this? Yes. Sometimes they say min ba'du or min qablu with the dhamma. That's a different topic. That's like, you can say an exception to the rule, but generally they're going to have a fatha. Okay, that's a good way to remember. Also, that's a good way to remember the difference between the huruf and the dhuruf. So let's talk about that real quick. This will be the last thing that I talk about today. Notice that the dhuruf have a fatha at the end, right? One fatha specifically, though they can technically have two, but normally they have one. Notice that for the huruf, which is this picture, look at the ending of these words. I say word, it's a harf, right? Look at the ending of these huruf. This min has a sukoon. Ila, technically it's a sukoon because there's nothing on this alif maksura, but the point is it's not a fatha. I know there's a fatha here. This is a bit tricky, but the ila actually ends with the sukoon because that lam has the fatha This alif maksura has on the word ilah actually has a sukoon, even though it's not written. You could say it's like a sukoon. Excuse me. Ala is the same thing. The sukoon is on the alif maksura. Even though, so we don't pronounce it like a sukoon. It's ala, it's extended, right? But grammatically speaking, it's actually a sukoon. This ba has a kasra. This lam has a kasra. This kaf has a fatha, but it's not a dharf. This this one fi has a kasra, and this an has a sukoon. So notice how with your huruf, only one of them has a fatha. The rest of them end with something else. So that's another good way. I wouldn't call it a rule. It's kind of like a quick little pattern that I've noticed. The huruf can end with just about anything. They can end with sukoon, fatha, kasra, sometimes even dhamma. But the dhuruf usually end with a fatha. Okay, so I'll go ahead and put it right here as well. So note the dhuruf usually end with al-fath, or just say fatha, and the huruf have various endings. Okay, that's another good way to recognize it. So it's not really a rule, but if you're, if you're asked this on some exam and you're struggling to remember whether it's a harf or a dharf, maybe this might help. Something to keep in mind. It's not a foolproof rule, so just keep that in mind. I mean, there's gonna be exceptions to this, but generally speaking, it's a good rule it's like a good rule of thumb to have, that a dharf will end with the fatha, and not two. It can, but usually not. And the huruf have various endings. So okay, I think this would be a good point to stop. Does anyone have any questions at all? This is a good time to ask if anyone has any questions. Okay, sounds good. I feel like you guys might be thoroughly confused, and it's probably just all a blend of stuff put together. So that's the way Arabic works. It's not easy, and it's just gonna get harder because that's just how grammar of any language works, and it's how language works. But please don't be discouraged. This is going to happen. And if I can make it to the end of the tunnel, so can you guys. I mean, I struggled too when I was studying it, but I just made sure I got through. So just something to keep in mind, that this stuff is difficult. There's no doubt about it. You're not going to get a spiritual high or an iman high, as they call it, from studying grammar. That's just not a thing. But it's necessary to study this stuff if you want to access the Quran, or really any Islamic text, but especially the Quran. As you guys know, I don't have to go on a saga about that. You guys understand that. I mean, that's why you're here with Fawakih studying this stuff. So it is difficult, but just be aware. I mean, this is just part of the process, really. So if you have any other questions, you can ask them now, or you guys, as you've noticed, you can ask them in the WhatsApp groups, and I tend to respond if your teachers don't end up responding, which is fine. You guys also know that, I mean, several of you have contacted me directly about any questions or concerns. So if you have any, you're welcome to contact me directly on WhatsApp or email. WhatsApp's preferred, and I get back to you in due time. Please do make sure to leave the office hours group session once, and I'll send out a message too, just because it's easier for you to rejoin next week. And I'll inshallah share this Google Doc on the WhatsApp group as well as the recording probably tonight, inshallah, so that for those of you who wish to watch it and benefit from it, you can. And yeah, that pretty much concludes it. If you have any questions, just please do let me know. I think we now have to.
I have
Good,
the
awesome.
prepositional there will be phrase, not the sentence, complete sentence. If we use the preposition.
Yes, actually, and that I'm trying to think of an exception to that. There's no exception to that as far as I know. Yes, in fact, even in the grammar, they look at it like that. They call it shibhul jumla. So,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to write it down unless you guys have studied that term, but shibhul jumla literally means quasi sentence. It's what we call a phrase. So yes, both the dhuruf and the huruf jar. I'm talking about if you isolated them by themselves. Yes, they're both considered phrases, and phrase by definition is not a complete sentence. So yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. And also that's how they look at it in Arabic grammar. They call it a shibhul jumla. You don't need to worry about that term unless you've learned it. I don't know, but I would suspect that you have not learned that term yet. But later on, if you learn in the grammar, you will learn that phrase. Shibul jumla basically is a phrase. And that's what they use in the Arabic grammar texts. Because the dhuruf and the huruf are both considered phrases, they are inherently, by definition, incomplete. They're not complete sentences. So yes. Okay. Rahima, excellent, good. I'm glad to I'm glad to hear that. Okay, cool. I'm glad to hear that you have better understanding. All right, we'll go ahead and stop here. I mean, if you have any questions, feel free to linger and let me know. Otherwise, inshallah, this Google document recording will be available shortly, probably sometime tonight, inshallah. And if you have any questions, you guys all have my, you have my WhatsApp number. You can contact me at any time, questions or concerns, and I will be happy to respond about the material or anything else. Anything confusing, just let me know, and we will. I'm always available for my students, and we will go from there. So, okay, you guys are welcome to leave. I'm going to go ahead and no problem at all. Anytime, no problem at all. I'm very happy to help out. Yes. Oh, also, sorry, I wanted to mention one last thing. If you guys have any, I know that there were some students who were concerned about the fast-paced nature of the classroom setting. If you guys are fine with the classroom setting, then that's fine. Then there's no concern. If you guys are concerned, and I know some of you are because the material is going really fast, I did talk to my supervisor. Long story short, he's willing to talk with you guys separately. The administrative team is what I'm trying to say. So if I have reached out to some of you about it, and basically all I said was that I have informed them of the students who I think have expressed their concerns, and then they said that they will reach out to you in due time eventually. If you don't hear back from them, please reach out to me. Sometimes I can't remember all the students that I help out, but just reach out to me. And if you don't hear back from anyone, basically, and within a few days or by tomorrow, let me know, and I can make sure that I reach out to them on your behalf. And we just want to make sure that you are getting help. Sorry about the delay, but I mean, as you can imagine, my supervisor has to, he's managing all 4, 5, 6 levels of Fawakih Institute. So he's got a lot of students on his hands. So that's why it took a bit of a delay, but he is keen on getting you guys the proper resources that you would like, that is appropriate for your, self-paced or otherwise. So reach out to me if you also want help with that or any other material, please. Okay. Alrighty, well, I guess we'll go and stop here. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. You're welcome to leave. I'm going to go and stop the recording pretty soon. So take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.